Senators have just started reading the FBI report on allegations of sexual misconduct against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
Republicans and Democrats will take turns viewing the single copy of the document ahead of a vote to cut off debate on the Kavanaugh nomination tomorrow. A final vote could happen as early as Saturday. The Wall Street Journal reports White House officials read the FBI report and found no corroboration of the allegations.
The FBI interviewed about 7 people, including friends of Kavanaugh and friends of Christine Blasey Ford, who claims Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her in high school. Agents also spoke to Deborah Ramirez, who alleges Kavanaugh exposed himself to her at a party during their time at Yale University. They did not interview Blasey Ford or Kavanaugh, who denies all the allegations. More than 1,000 law school professors have signed a New York Times op-ed this morning saying the Senate should not confirm Kavanaugh. They say he displayed a, quote, lack of judicial temperament during his hearing last week.
CBS News senior national security analyst Fran Townsend was Homeland Security advisor to President George W. Bush. She served in his administration with Judge Kavanaugh and signed a letter supporting his nomination before the misconduct allegations were made public. Fran, good morning.
Good morning.
Give us some sense of what these senators are looking at. Is it a big binder? Is it transcripts? What are they looking at?
So when the FBI does an interview, they do a record of that interview called a 302. That's the number of the form, right? And what that is a summary. It's not a transcript. It's a summary of the questions they asked and the witnesses' answers. And then that's all collated into the background report, which is more likely a narrative that pulls all those 302s together. It may also include the underlying 302 reports.
Why didn't they interview Kavanaugh and Ford?
And are you surprised by that?
I am. Look, I personally don't believe as a prosecutor that you could have a credible and complete investigation without an interview of Dr. Ford. Now, I think what you're going to hear from the FBI is that they were constrained in who they could talk to by the scope of the investigation. But even if you take that on face value, that they were constrained to investigate the allegations of sexual assault, that still doesn't explain why you don't interview Dr. Ford.
But they're saying they already have her testimony and they already have his testimony. Is that fair?
Well, that is fair, but what do you not get out of that? Well, you don't get out of that the therapist notes, which you could have asked her for permission to get. You don't get the polygraph or the polygraph report, which you could have asked her for. And so there are a lot of good reasons in a thorough investigation. As a prosecutor, I think I would have sent the agents back out to do that.
Does it hurt the FBI's credibility, do you
think? I think it does. I think, look, everybody called for this because they were an independent third party. They were the gold standard in terms of an investigation, nonpartisan. And to have them now say, we found no support for Dr. Ford's allegations, but we didn't speak to her, I think does undermine their credibility.
But are background checks investigations or are they inquiries?
Well, they're inquiries, right? And you're quite right,
I just think like the expectation that all of a sudden that this was going to exonerate someone or condemn someone was wrong from the beginning. They gather information.
That's right. And they have no subpoena power. They can't compel anyone to be interviewed by them. And I do think we have to be, from the beginning I said, what do we expect of the FBI? This allegation is 36 years old. They're unlikely, I thought from the beginning, to be able to corroborate it. But they also haven't disproven it.
But a lot of people, Fran, are raising questions now about his temperament, and former classmates are coming forward saying he actually lied about his behavior when it comes to drinking. Does that matter?
Well, I think it matters in the overall consideration for the senators. But let's be clear on this inquiry, as Norah was saying. That was not part of it. All the FBI was asked to do was look at the sexual assault allegations. And so the White House cleverly sort of scoped this additional background investigation to exclude those things, the drinking, his testimony under oath, all those sort of things.
Look, and as a journalist, too, you want to be able to, we're not going to see this, but I'm saying for a senator, you want to hear from as many people as you can hear from so that you can get a sense of who's believable, who's credible, whatever. Why did they didn't need to turn it in this early. They had some extra time. Why not just interview a few more people?
That's right. And look, the real question here, as you know from your time in Washington, is what is Senators Flake, Collins, and Murkowski think of this? Do they think it's adequate? And frankly, I don't think you've done very much to give them much political cover because it's not been that widespread. So today we want to watch those three.
And that's the interesting point, is whether people are saying this isn't, the scope isn't big enough, whether they have the political cover. As you point out, that's an interesting. Thank you, Fran. Always good to have you.
Thanks.